Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're doing the second novel in the Space Pirate trilogy, follow-up novel to The Height of Perdition, which is called The Breath of Creation, and this is the second in a three-part series or a trilogy. But before we get started, a couple of things. If you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. Number one way is the monthly prompt Lemoy, where I give you a prompt, you answer it, and then the first Monday video of the month is reading what you guys came up with. The second way is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or coming out, submit the first chapter and cover to the Fresh Meat feature. They will be read here on the channel every Monday except for the first Monday of the month, and hopefully that'll help more people find your work to enjoy what you do. The third thing is if you would like to check out any of my books, they're out there, they're available, and I hope you enjoy them if you choose to check them out. With that said, let's jump into this. Why are we here? Number one, thank Abigail. Number two, I do attempt to read the whole of a series I pick up to watch the arc and see how it develops, to see the earlier pieces connect, because sometimes stuff that doesn't make sense earlier on or that is not likable earlier on makes more sense later as things connect together. So I try to give an author a chance to show me the full story before I judge it totally. And it was also, I read this at the beginning of January. After I'd finished book one, it was there, so here we are. But at the moment, you don't even know what you're in for yet. So, book two. It opens with Exton resisting his vengeful desires while staring at the freshly planted memory tree in Petra. That is the free society commune that he's created, or is part of. Exton, our hero, has gone without the love of his life for about half the amount of time that he'd known her. The torture, the pain. It's been so long. It's been about a week. And you have to be sympathetic because this man is suffering. He mopes about being upset with his sister for doing the jobs that Ari would have done because it reminds him that she's not there. And he was without the love of his life that God had finally thrown at him after all the limp fishes that he didn't freaking want. Meanwhile, you also have Ari's actually not dead mother, Mara, hanging around as she arranged the rescue that saved Exton at the end of book one. Exton asks Mira why she's even there, and she says that it's because they have to take down the URS together. It hasn't been very long now, but Exton doesn't really believe he and his crew can do anything about the URS. I feel like if he was gonna make the revelation that we can't fight the URS because they're much bigger and much more capable than us, he would have made this revelation a long time ago, not in the week after having attacked the URS. Or I guess if he goes, well, they overpowered us and we got shot down, if we got to see him kind of think through why he thinks that he is no match for them and it's all a waste of time, then that would have made this make more sense. But we didn't get to see him come to that realization. He's just started out giving up, and there was also no reflection on it. But Exton continues, like, our community might be growing, but we don't have the soldiers to fight the war with. The downside of individualism is that we can't use people as fodder, and they won't just sign up for the military like they will in, you know, a brainwash land. Mira reminds Exton that he stole the ship from the URS to begin with, so what makes him think that he can't take down the URS? He's got their gear. Considering how much Exton likes to mope, there could have been strong character building here to show the change that he felt with Ari being taken from him, but none of it was there. Mira challenges Exton to use his power and strike the URS while things are hot, and Exton's like, but we aren't bad guys though. Since when aren't pirates who steal things the bad guys to someone? Not to mention he was seething about killing St. Cloud in the last book. Since when does he have this moral compass where he's like, but I'm not a bad guy, I can't do bad guy things. He wasn't even a pacifist in the last book, but he's just, if he was bad before, he's even more pathetic now, and for no apparent reason. Like, Exton made threats in the last book, continuously. Unless he was faking all of the rage and vengeance that the Reverend talked to him about, how is it that he is so much of a sap and a terrible leader in this book? He needs to step down if he can't lead the people like they expect him to. He literally just provoked one of the most powerful countries on the planet. And St. Cloud said, I know where you and your people are. And Exton's over here like, but we are not the bad guys, so we can't do anything against the state. Then why did you provoke them? Like, if that was gonna be your whole thing, you shouldn't have stole the tree. That was unnecessary. You're like, we're gonna pull this prank on these powerful guys that we can't do anything against. So this reads like a shallow attempt at creating resistance in the plot, which could have been done another way, and this was aggressively meaningless. Because when the URS is bad, they're gonna bomb us, etc., are all mentioned. Exton won't spring into action, but when Mira brings up Aerie and says, I guess you'll never get your girl back and she'll marry someone else, this is reason enough for Exton to call to arms again, especially considering St. Cloud is now the military strategist of the URS and he knows where Petra is. So, like, the bombing of your entire commune, state, whatever, is not good enough. But the fact that the chick that you fell in love with 2 weeks ago will marry someone else is worth risking more than your home and all of the people in it. Exton, you are out of control. Make this man step down. We need a mutiny. Who is with me? Raise your hands. Who is with mutinizing Exton? But, you know, since he's been reminded of Aerie, I guess now it's time to ride again. Switch over onto Aerie's life without Exton. She's working, having headaches, and trying to remember things through the pain. It just feels like something is missing, you know? She's working alongside a girl named Claire, who is obviously just there to be a bitch. She gets in trouble, but more or less is ignored for it and doesn't get punished because the day is over, so there will be no punishment for her failures and her back-talking to her boss. After going home, a woman named Meredith appears at the door, summoning Aerie to the hospital. They both talk trash about the government as they walk. And side note, I don't know how this is a functioning dictatorship with this terrible control when I've literally seen no one here adhere to the dictatorship rule. The meanest person in this story so far is Claire, and that's not because she's adhering to the dictatorship rule. She's adhering to high school rankings. And this idea that girls always have to be in competition and hate each other if they're not like BFFs, and it's just, okay, I guess. Maybe they should have a woman run the dictatorship and then people would actually be scared. Just saying. Because all of the dudes in this book are dickless. Meredith delivers Aerie to the hospital where she awaits in a room. Aerie is thinking about how she actually kind of likes Mary and maybe they could become friends in the future. Aerie feels up her musky man jacket that she's wearing and it makes her feel pain on the inside. She doesn't know why. As she's in the hospital room, it turns out that she didn't actually have an appointment, so she had no reason to be there. So why did she get summoned and escorted there by a third party? She's told by the doctor to get out, but then argues with the guy because she wants to see her medical charts since she's having weird memories she doesn't understand. The doctor won't give up the charts, and instead of escorting Aerie out, he just leaves her there to see herself out because apparently he trusts her to do that. Now, the results may surprise you. Aerie actually ends up wandering around the hospital freely looking for Meredith. Bet you didn't see that one coming. So somehow instead though, Brock also knows that she's at the hospital, even though she didn't actually have an appointment, but somebody apparently told him, or psychic abilities, or I don't really know. I admit, maybe I missed something, but it seemed very random that suddenly Brock was also there. Came because he's there to take her to her 18th birthday party. They talk about his coming military career and how he's gonna be on his best behavior at the party so that he can impress Aerie's dad. Back at Exton's place, he's arguing with Emery about whether they should boot Mira from the ship because Mira wants to start a full-fledged war again, and this is like, what were they trying to do in the last book by provoking the URS? Like, what was the goal even with the URS when they stole the tree and talked about devastating them if it wasn't to start a war? What did they think would happen if that was not something that they anticipated would be a response to their actions? Tyler comes in and is like, I'm not getting involved in this. Probably because he always loses fights with his wife, so Exton's gonna lose this as well. Eventually, everyone comes together for a motivational speech about going to war with the URS, and it's happening. Back with Aerie, she's sitting on a roof looking at the moon, remembering things about the tree and Exton when Brock joins her. Aerie and Brock argue because Aerie is short-tempered. Brock basically proposes to her saying that they should move in together and maybe after that, maybe after a year or two, they could become official partners and raise a unit. Aerie tells him no because she wants a family, not a unit. Then she commiserates that there must be more out there because she doesn't like how things are down here and she just knows there must be something else. Note, this is theoretically post-brainwashing or brainwashing light via the serum they didn't follow up on by giving her more of the serum maybe to make sure that it works. I guess St. Cloud wasn't lying when he said that their methods weren't really effective, but then how does anything here operate under this dictatorship when even the biggest threat of things doesn't really work or do anything? It doesn't seem like anybody is under the spell of the dictatorship. So Brock snaps at Aerie because she sounds like a dictator rather than just reporting her secretly like he should. He gives her a picture from their graduation, hoping that it helps settle her anxieties. Her father then comes in to talk to her, and he says he's disappointed in his daughter's work ethic and how she didn't accept Brock's proposal to be his partner. Aerie is just like, I'm kind of disappointed in the state, so I guess we're even. Meanwhile, Exton's getting approval from the Ecclesiasta to propose war. Once done, he prepares for battle with Mira, and though Exton is suspicious of her, he continues forward. Aerie's then looking for Meredith while she's being followed by agents of the state because of her sussery. She escapes the tails easily somehow and goes up to where the memory tree should be. But it's obviously not there. Her father catches her there and tells her the truth of what happened to her. That is, that she was captured and tortured by rebels, which is why she has no memory of certain things that happened to her. She immediately trusts his word despite how he is and how she immediately trusts his word despite how he is and how she hasn't trusted him in the past. Then she forgives him for lying to her and believes that he truly cares about her. Exton and Emery are then preparing for war while talking about how God is on their side. They engage in the first skirmish. Exton's shot down, crash lands, and is attacked by guards, but he beats them all with ease. He's using the comms to report back to his team when he hears Aerie's voice. He says her name and she remembers everything all at once, and now she's angry at her father again because he's a liar. Also, the comms connection breaks off before she can say anything back. Aerie speeds her way to finding Brock after shunning him since her birthday party. She asks him to betray the state and risk his life and career so that she can get back to Exton. Talk about cold. And it's not because she doesn't understand he has a crush. She 100% understands that he's got a crush on her, and she's like, I'm gonna freaking use this to my advantage. Now, her intention is to lie to Brock and use him by saying, there's been an attack and I need you to take me somewhere that the state already told me that I couldn't go. Please help me. She tells Brock about having been taken by the ghost of Chainsword, and then she makes it sound worse than it actually was by hinting that the space pirate did something suggestive to her that was so bad that she doesn't want to talk about it. Since Brock is in love with Aerie, he obviously gets angry at the idea of somebody hurting her, and yet Aerie is confused by the fact that what she just said upset Brock. Still, Brock says that he can't defy the state, so Aerie screams at him that the truth matters more than the rules, while also lying to him. She also basically admits to being a defector, and in my opinion, if Brock doesn't report her, this dictatorship is confirmed fake. And I'll let you know that, yeah, we're confirmed fake because there's no reporting this behavior. As Aerie leaves the flight bay or wherever they are, she's arrested and finally taken to re-education for failing at her job. I shouldn't have cheered for this, but I did. For some reason, she thinks that railing against the officers by using the term father will stop her from going to re-education. I think it's just more confirmation of her booking since she's not using appropriate lingo for the state. Because Aerie didn't respond to Exton on the comms now, when he said her name, he thinks that she doesn't remember him at all because all she said was, "Who are you?" before the line cut off. Mira then explains how she faked her own death because she was pregnant with a 5th child and the URS has a bizarre 4-child policy. While this is going on, they're informed of Aerie's arrest and re-education, so it looks like it's time to go into the URS and save Aerie because that's why he'll go to war, but not for freeing the people of nuclear threat. So Aerie is in prison / re-education, still in her normal outfit, no prison attire, and they didn't take things from her. They didn't go through her pockets to make sure she didn't have contraband or something bad, because then Aerie is in her jacket and she's reaching around the pockets in her jacket and she finds a picture of Emery and Exton in there. Meredith comes in to change the sheets, though we have no idea how long Aerie has even been in the re-education camp, so like, why does she need new sheets? But Meredith is also there to say that she is going to break Aerie out. It'll just take some time. Meredith also says that she's miserable and hates it in the URS, but she can't leave her post. She's in a position to do something bigger than all of this, and that's just how it is. I'm sitting here wondering how there are no cameras and mics in that room to make sure the prisoners, you know, to pick up on like prisoner speech, or to make sure that there aren't defectors, or to make sure that stuff is working and people aren't like saying things that they shouldn't be saying. But who am I to judge how this dictatorship is run. I've never run a dictatorship. I couldn't possibly run it this effectively. Some people come in and put a needle in Aerie while she's pretending to be asleep. She's surprised by their conversation when she learns that Osgood knows when she's surprised to learn that Osgood knows of her. And she's like, why would anyone that high up know of me? Well, forgetting that her dad is the second in command, so her dad probably has a personal relationship with Osgood. While drugged, she's branded, and once the guards leave, she contemplates her position in society and why Osgood would be so happy to have her in re-education. I mean, really, Aerie? Really? As an obvious defector who is the daughter of the second command, you can't figure out why Osgood would be like, thank goodness this chick is in re-education where she should freaking be. A man walks into Aerie's room while she's supposedly still drugged. She doesn't recognize him until he's in her face saying that they need to talk. Next scene, she's strapped to a table and being electrocuted for no apparent reason. Like, I get that it's torture, but we're not going through anything that looks like re-education or questioning or getting compliance or getting her to lie to herself or else she will get shocked. There's like none of that. It's just shocking her. Also, for some reason, this guy is the third in command and he's got nothing better to do than torture this random chick. Also, he tells her to use his first name, and I'm like, why? He should be teaching her ranking and respect, right? Because she needs to be re-educated. So why would you have her act like she's an equal? After getting her name, the dude says that they are friends now and proceeds to shock her so hard that she's shaking. Yet she's also got nothing in her mouth to bite down on. For me, that's what really made this read like an aesthetic choice by someone who hasn't really looked into shock therapy or electrocution like this. Because there are reasons that patients who got shock therapy always had something in their mouth. It was so they didn't bite their tongues and choke themselves to death. But that's not present in here. It's just shock her hard enough that she's like literally shaking, but put nothing in her mouth to protect. Dude then starts on about how he went to school with Exton, expositing background information to Aerie for no apparent reason. Dude straight up admits that he's gonna keep lying to the state about Exton until he can catch Exton himself to prove himself, because also that's a personal vendetta. And somehow this dictatorship doesn't know that the Chainsword's ghost is the son of the major defector who was the original Chainsword. Brock breaks into the torture room with Meredith and they both attack the third in command of this police state before bouncing out of the room with Aerie. Aerie's then pissed that Brock isn't Exton coming to save her, but somehow restrains herself from snapping at him for not being the right person to save her. Now, they're literally in the middle of an escape when they run into Serena, Aerie's sister, who is a medical student and more perfect and gorgeous than Aerie is, because of course, we gotta have a competition between literally every female character. Serena is also ready to help Brock betray the state because she's got a crush on Brock, and that's all that it takes to become a defector, apparently. Serena doesn't even pause to question her choices. She is ready to throw everything away for a man who doesn't even notice she exists. Brock also has no self-restraint when it comes to Aerie, just proving that there is no brainwashing or fear truly going on in this dictatorship. There's not even a question of loyalty, so everyone in this universe is totally chill with betraying their motherland for a crush that may not even like them. They haven't even confirmed. So Serena shoves Aerie away from Brock so hard that she goes flying across the room, and Brock doesn't notice this even when he was literally carrying Aerie and caring about her well-being like a second ago. The three of them get to the flight hangar to steal a ship without running into anyone stopping them, despite how the base and way of life was all under attack from overhead. Brock takes care of Aerie's wounds and puts her in a chair once they've gotten on the flight. Then he kisses her on the lips. Aerie can only think about how she needs to shoot Brock down after everything is over and she doesn't need his help anymore because she doesn't give a frick about him. But she's cool with manipulating and using him to her own ends. Now the ship is being attacked by Exton's ship and Brock goes into a full strike. Switch over to Exton and Emery talking about approaching New Hope for a fight. While attacking, Exton learns the Ecclesia already started an attack on New Hope without telling him. How and when they did this without telling the captain of the ship is beyond me, and this left me wondering how this group of rebels also functions when there is a group of thought leadership who are above the captain and can undermine him at any time and command everybody. This just makes me think that Exton's actually just a figurehead for the rebels and he really doesn't matter. Aerie's father calls up the ship to say, so guys, you're too late on your attack. My daughter's been moved, and Exton and St. Cloud taunt each other until Exton gets mad and hangs up while saying, he's got to do this for me. He owes me. Meanwhile, Aerie is trying to convince Brock not to attack Exton's ship again without revealing her feelings. She says, use him as a scapegoat for what just happened. You know, stealing the ship, the attack on the base. Though that's also weird because it's not using this as a scapegoat when his people are legitimately behind the attack. Aerie guilts Brock down into saying, even if we take him out, you think that the state won't put me back in re-education? You saw what they were doing to me. Please don't make me go back. I'm not sure how this helps. Basically, this is Aerie saying to join the rebels, betray the state, and never look back for her. That conversation isn't had though, and Brock just immediately folds and says, okay, we will just not go back. The consequences of this choice, that are totally overlooked, cannot be understated. Brock just gave up his entire military and political career by apparently freeing Aerie and helping her escape the planet. But also, her father knows that she's free because he just said as much to Exton, so the state knows that she's jailbroken. Is it because they're hiding her? Is it because they're hiding everything from Osgood? Did St. Cloud send Brock in there to get his daughter out of re-education? And so then he already knows this is going on, so he's got the protection of the second in command. I'm not sure. And if St. Cloud did say that to Brock and have Brock go in because he's betraying Osgood, is this ever going to smack him in the face? Why is St. Cloud even fighting Exton if he doesn't believe in what the state is doing to this level where he's hiding things? Like, there's no reason to taunt Exton because you're actually on the same team anyway. And spoiler alert, when we get to the end, you find out that that's true. So like, why are you a double agent? You're talking to Exton secretly anyway. Brock should have slowed down at least a little bit, because if he's found out, he's going to re-education, comms, or certain death. Serena's also now in the same boat, but risked herself for a lot less, and she also got no playtime in thinking about what her choices meant. Brock agrees to stop attacking Exton and flies away. Aerie notices more ships are tailing them though. It turns out to be her twin brothers who are friends with Brock and came to help him, also betraying the state. Aerie is like, ew, I don't like them, because she doesn't like anybody in her family. Aerie also learns that her sister also cares about their mother, but doesn't want to believe in love. There is such a lack of consistency in this book between what we are told the people believe and how strict the dictatorship is versus how everyone from the dictatorship actually behaves. Like, you're talking about how love is illogical, so the URS scrapped it, but Exton was insulting the URS and how it encouraged people to only respond with their feelings and not think things through. You're either objective and you're cold, or you're led by feelings. You can't be both of them. During the battle, Exton caught a hold of one of Brock's allies, and Aerie's like, it's fine, he won't hurt him, and Brock's like, no, it's not fine, we're still enemies, even if I'm not attacking him right now. Brock's ship is then shot down and crashes on the ground. Aerie and Exton are reunited, and they hug and kiss, and there are tears. Exton doesn't want to break it to Aerie that her mother is still alive, but also there are things about his past that he doesn't want known. Exton and Brock fight each other a little bit over Aerie before Exton brushes him off, and they're going to deal with other fighters that had been with Brock. There's a temporary truce between Brock and Exton so that they don't get hurt, but also I don't understand why, because this confirms now that Brock will be on the outs with the state unless he does something to take Exton down. And in the end, this is all just a double-crossing ruse, which I grant this could happen in the third book. Now, with everybody together, they're getting to know everybody else. Aerie continues to lead Brock on so that he'll comply. She knows that he's into her, but she's not telling him that she's into somebody else. Brock goes in to punch Exton and loses because of course he does. Aerie tells Brock that Exton saved her life, and Aerie admits to also loving Exton and is like, things will probably be fine once I show everyone Petra and the life and friends that they could be having. Aerie admits to loving Exton and is like, things will probably be fine once I show everyone Petra and the life and friends that they could be having that they don't have in the URS. Now reunited, everybody is going home. To Petra. Aerie doesn't like that Exton might torture or punish her family if they can't be trusted, but he dismisses her concerns, saying that she has no choice in the matter anyway. I thought he just said he wasn't the bad guy at the beginning of this. So she hopes for the best. She doesn't really argue with him on it because she's like, I can't really argue with him on it, so I'll just hope for the best. Exton and Aerie catch up on everything that's happened since they've been away from each other for so long, the longest week and a half of their freaking life, if even that. Feels like a lifetime. Sunrise is hitting Petra. Aries telling Brock to behave himself while they're on Petra, and Aunt Patty comes in to lay down the ground rules for the guests. Exton picks Aerie up from talking to Emery, and the two of them go off to spend time with each other at the memory tree. While together, Exton and Aerie are kissing each other passionately. Exton sees the electric burns on Aerie's skin and is disturbed. He apologizes for ever giving her back to the URS. Exton then finds the picture that Aerie stole from the room in her jacket and crumples it up. He gets mad at her for even having it and says that she can't keep it. Even if she doesn't want it, it's going in the trash and she's not allowed to go digging for it. It is his picture, his garbage. No. Like all stable, responsible adults, he doesn't explain why he wants to hide his past, just that it need not be known who he has connections to. For some reason, Aerie doesn't inform Exton of what everyone else already knows, and that's the second in command, St. Cloud, her father, already knows that he is Chainsword's ghost. But that is all silly anyway, because in that one picture he just threw away, Exton was posing with St. Cloud and others. And you don't think that people on this ship know his relation to St. Cloud and the URS, especially with what his father was to the regime? Exton tells Aerie that the lieutenant guy who tortured her used to be his good friend Gerard. And when they were fleeing the URS together, he got captured and re-educated successfully. And now, since the dude tortured Aerie, the fact that he was Exton's best friend doesn't matter. That guy needs to die, no mercy, right now for what he did to Aerie. Like, for all of the stuff that Gerard did for Exton, as is explained in the book, for Exton to go fuck that guy is ridiculous. They go on for a while about how Gerard is a lost cause, but somehow Aerie had hope, even though, based on her positioning, she would be more of a lost cause. Can we just admit that Exton is horny, lazy, and a really bad friend? Because that's what comes across here. No one should be serving under him for this utopia because, bruh, he will ditch you. No turning back. Let's just murder. Murder is fine. Aerie asks Exton why they're even at war with the URS, and I'm like, how does she not know that? At the end of her saying that, Aerie's mom walks in, and Exton is like, oh, by the way, your mom is actually alive. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. With the two of them reunited, Aerie asks why she was abandoned, and Mira refuses to answer. I don't know why she was so resistant to telling Aerie why she left. The excuse she gives is that I don't want to explain myself multiple times, but it's easy enough to say, hey, I got pregnant a 5th time, didn't want to kill the baby. There were only, the policy in the URS was a 4-kid policy, so I left. What's hard about saying that more than one time? I don't really know. But she just, that's the excuse she gives. She goes, I'm not going to tell you why I abandoned you because I want to wait for all of your siblings to be present. Mira then tells Aerie to go take a nap to calm down because she always was whiny when she was tired. And that's just like, nice. Great job. Great way to reunite. The greatest thing that you can possibly do once you're finally reunited with your daughter after however many years it's been is be condescending and don't respect her as an adult. You abandoned her. I don't know. How can you really want a relationship with someone like that after what they did to you with the abandonment, and then they treat you like they're some holier than thou. They're still your mom. They can talk down to you as an adult. Bitch, you left. You're not mother anymore. Who do you think you are talking to me like that is what I would be like. But you know what? I'm not the problem. You're the one that abandoned your children. Yes, I'm judging you. But maybe try having respect for your adult children, even if Aerie doesn't deserve it. Sorry if I'm a little aggressive on this. Personal issues, I get it. But I can't stand parents who walk out on their children and then pretend like they are the victims. So Aerie storms off, runs into Emery, and the two of them catch up before Aerie continues her exit to the medical bay. Mira then goes to Exton, making demands on giving stuff to her settlement and to see her kids. And she's taking over the ship, by the way, because she's a girl boss and she can do that. Patty shows up and Mira eventually goes away. You'd think that Exton, as the captain of the ship, would have some kind of backbone against these women, but he doesn't. Neither Patty nor Exton trust Mira and talk about her tailing. Neither Patty nor Exton trust Mira and talk about tailing her. Then Patty tells Exton to take care of Aerie and go sleep. Exton looks over Aerie's medical chart and the two of them bond. Later, they get into a heavy makeout session that Exton breaks up to basically propose to Aerie right then and there, to which Aerie goes, but what if we become like my parents? And that turns into one of the most awkward couple scenes I've read in a very long time. But eventually, the two of them agree to be married, basically, and pass out together. Exton goes to work where he runs into Brock, who is now staking his claim in Aerie and tries to make Exton mad by saying that he kissed her on the ship and Aerie liked it. Somehow, Exton's pretending that no one in the URS knows about Petra except for St. Cloud. Like, why wouldn't St. Cloud have told anyone else in the URS about Petra? That's an enemy of theirs. He's the second in command. He's set up some fights. So of course, he's given out information on formation of a battle. People know. They start talking about St. Cloud attacking and how they want to save Gerard and Meredith from the URS, but also the brainwashing of the both of them is so strong. Dude, Meredith literally helped Aerie escape and is an informant for Exton. I don't know why Exton's getting this information wrong, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was wrong, that she was a literal informant, but that just shows how disconnected he is to the operations of his own group. So the family is now back together, except, Dad is obviously missing because he's in the URS. Aerie and all of her siblings bicker over the breakfast table. They're all taunting each other about being incels or not, and they argue about political systems, which one's the best one. Mira comes out as a rebel leader, and the children also learn that they have a fifth sibling. And this is why Mira abandoned all 4 of her other children. Clearly, we know where her favorite is. Then Aerie is confronted by Brock, who feels like he lost her for life, even though she'd only been gone for like 3 weeks. Like, that's where he's complaining about. He's like, I thought you were never gonna come back. And even one of those weeks was just because she had amnesia. She was right there. Aerie is pretty much like, Brock, I'm just not into you. So then Brock randomly starts punching Aerie because I guess since he can't have her, he's gonna knock sense into her for leaving the state, as if this behavior isn't, wildly out of character for someone who was reciting facts don't care about your feelings earlier. Aerie overpowers Brock when they're fighting and runs into Exton's arms because now he's suddenly showing up. Then Exton learns that Aerie's blood has a tracker in it, which is apparently also standard procedure in the URS, so he should have known that considering he's a defector from the URS, so he would have been privy to that information. They need to now figure out how to get the tracker out of her blood, but they also have to protect her. There's a discussion of putting her in a bunker underground until they figure something out. Preparations for war with the URS continue, and the discussions about hating war also happen. Brock's over here in the corner pouting because Aerie is lost to him. Aerie needs a blood transfusion to get the tracker out of her body, and Brock volunteers his blood despite knowing that he has no chance at all with Aerie. Brock, we need to talk, bro. You need some self-respect. You need to stop simping. Listen, look at me closely, Brock. Listen to me. Do not carry the plot with your simpery. Please. For the love of your own self-esteem, she is never going to be into you. Do not sacrifice yourself for her. No mas. Sorry, Brock needed that. Now back to the plot. Not that any of this really matters, because all is well without doing anything. It turns out that the blood tracker wasn't even working because of the electroshock therapy. Now, give me your thoughts on this, but it seems like very poor planning on the part of the URS when your re-education disables what is literally part of modern society, especially when she got the chip specifically in re-education. Literally right before she went into shock therapy. So, like, what is the point of this? Why even bring up a blood tracker? When you bring it up, nobody does anything, and then it's immediately resolved anyway and everything is fine. Like, there was no point to this except to make Brock simp for her and then her be like, I don't even need him anyway. That's what happened. So everyone finds out that Mira has drained a bunch of resources and personnel from the ship and bounced the heck out of there. Aerie tries to convince Brock that living with the dissenters is the way to be. She tells him that Exton suffered helping her because of love. He knows what love is. She wants the love. Then they're talking about Gerard, who is leading the battleships or transportation ships toward them for a fight. After Gerard won't back down, Exton's team prepares an assault, which includes Aerie bringing up how she worked in comms so she can use those skills to disrupt the enemy's communication. I have 2 problems with this. Number 1, of course, assigning a dissenter to comms backfired. It was a dumb decision in book 1 and made no sense. Number 2, she worked in comms for like 3 days. How is she already a pro that she's like, Rick and I can mess with all of the comms. They're never gonna know what's coming, bitch. 3 days. Girl boss much? It's the girl bossery! Continuing on, the team tries to stop the takeover of Petra, but also Gerard just kind of bails on everything because it really doesn't matter and he's not that invested in this anyway. The story skips the ship battle, saying that it was a struggle, but they won and now they are healing. Exton and Aerie recover their relationship from the last chapter when he said she's not good at following orders, and just that line alone hurt her feelings. She is very clearly not good at taking orders. Why the frick is she upset about the truth being said? Was she not screaming at Brock earlier about how the truth matters? And she's like, no, don't tell me I can't follow orders. It hurts my feelings. Scene skip over to Aerie and Exton getting married, and look at how little they actually care about their family. They start the proceedings without her mom or his sister even there yet. Finally, Emery shows up, and Exton makes a comment about wanting the ceremony to be over so that he can bang his hot wife. Because even the Christian romance is not safe. No one wants to be at this wedding. It's a show wedding is what it is. Then St. Cloud randomly shows up at this wedding and gets macked on by Mira because things are actually fine between them. Like maybe St. Cloud should have told his children the truth about their mother so that they wouldn't hate her and think that they were abandoned. If you're confused, don't worry. I am too. It's not like everyone here was just attacked by the URS and there was no resolution between Exton and St. Cloud. There wasn't even discussion to bring Exton down from being angry and aggressive. It just happened. St. Cloud gets to see his daughter Mary and the enemy pirate he's been fighting with, and the enemy pirate that he's been fighting with and also turncoated on at the end of the last book like a week ago. Just has to deal with it, but whatever, I guess. We're now informed of a random attempt on the dictator Osgood's life. I guess assassination attempts also really don't matter here because we're at like 90% at a wedding. Let's just throw this in there. Apparently St. Cloud might have set up the assassination attempt, but who knows? Exton still hates Aerie's dad and goes to pick a fight with him. Aerie's parents want to talk to Exton about seeking refuge in Petra and are telling Aerie to go away so that they can have a serious discussion without her, but she won't go. The wedding seems like the perfect time to have all of this discussion while they're at the altar, while the Reverend is standing there. This is just perfectly fine. St. Cloud and Mira admit to being double agents against the URS as if it's a surprise. I mean, for real, and they talk about how terrible the dictatorship is all the time. Everything that we've seen St. Cloud do undermines the dictatorship, and he hides stuff from Osgood while also basically being a shadow government underneath Osgood because he does whatever he wants, and he undermines Osgood's rule, and he changes things for himself. I'm not going to go into detail about everything that they talked about here. It's all just, it's not good. Also, because either St. Cloud lacks people skills or this book just lacks tact, St. Cloud first asks Exton to take him in as a guest or prisoner with Petra and the rebels, and then goes on to taunt him by saying, if you don't take me, you'll never know why I killed your father. Ha ha ha. I would assume that you killed the father because you worked for the URS and you're an asshole. Like, I don't need further information than that. But of course, let's just make some fake drama here at the end of the book that makes literally no sense. Why do anything complex or real or realistic or make St. Cloud actually extend an olive branch instead of taunting the guy that he's asking for help? Exton lands a punch on St. Cloud and says, damn, that guy is smart. Now I know that I don't want revenge against him because that punch was not satisfying and I do want answers from him. Gosh, diddly dang. Exton walks away and the book ends. Yeah, that is what happened. Okay, so comments. The timeline. These two get married at the end. And like, I get cosmic meetings, I get fate, I get arranged marriages, I get bigger picture things. But those things were not built in the story for me, so the attachment Exton had to Aerie and vice versa didn't make sense. If there was more tension in the first book that also gave this feeling of them being more of a partnership rather than one lusting for the other or one hating the other all the time because Aerie thinks that she's better than Exton, I could understand. Instead, this feels more like a girl desperate to get out of a bad situation, especially considering one of the climaxes in the last book was Exton wanting to get rid of Aerie the moment he found out who she was related to, and she was looking for any way that she could to not go back to the URS. This looks like the same sort of thing that's just like, please don't export me even though my green card is up. Keep me, keep me. Aerie. This isn't really romantic or cute or anything. It just feels rushed, wrong, forced, like it's trying to make a message about marriage, like it's trying to hit these beats for romance, and it doesn't work. Characters. I started this note off by saying I don't have a lot to add about characters, and then I feel like this is the longest section that I have to talk about. So Exton is still mopey and somehow ties his entire identity into Aerie while also doing nothing to get her back. Like, you'd think with how he stole the tree that he'd be fine with infiltrating the URS and rescuing Aerie, which I think actually would have been a more compelling story with him going back to the URS. People know, like, maybe recognizing him because of his legacy there and him trying to pretend to be somebody that he's not and trying to get to Aerie and all of the shenanigans that could come from that and the danger that could come from that, and then trying to get off of the ship and she's in the re-education, and he could have been the one to try to sneak into the re-education to get her, and he could have started to meet some of their other defectors in the area. Like, there's so much you could have done if he was an active participant in his own story and took moves to do something. And if this dictatorship was a real dictatorship, which it's not, but whatever, that's not the story that we got. And I realize that I'm asking for something completely different than this situation. Aerie wasn't brainwashed. She was never brainwashed. She never fell for anything, and the amnesia was so shallow, it doesn't feel like it even needed to be mentioned because she falls back out of it so quickly. Like, even on the first page of this book where with Aerie, she's like, I'm remembering things. I don't have a context for them, but I remember them. She doesn't struggle. It doesn't cause any complications. And then she immediately remembers everything the first time she hears Exton's voice. She could have gone straight into re-education when she came back, and she really should have after being held captive by the pirate guy. They should have at least tested her loyalties or tested her brainwashing or something. I also didn't understand why she was so resistant to going to university, because she complained about that at some point when she clearly enjoys doing research. She was also a girl boss who was a great pilot, even though she was barely 18 and studied botany. She was a better pilot than Brock? Really? Who was the top of his class? How? Answer me how. Oh, right. Girl bossery. My bad. Why earn when you can just be? Am I right? What we did learn in this book is how openly manipulative Aerie is, that she will use Brock, knows that she's using him, knows that she's getting him to betray his home and commit crime against the state, ruining his career and future by manipulating his feelings for her, knowing that she's doing it as she seeks out another man, her heart already given to another man, and she's not going to tell him because she wants to use him. We also see that Aerie is mean and resentful of everyone around her except for Exton. I don't know if I'm supposed to be cheering for this character or for both of these characters or looking at them positively in some way, but Aerie is immoral and never questions what she does or how she treats people. And maybe this is why her siblings don't like her. I'm starting to get on Serena's side if Serena's like, I don't like Aerie. Again, we meet numerous characters who are supposed to be dedicated to the regime, Brock and all of Aerie's siblings, but all of them are ready to throw away their loyalties immediately, creating zero difference between any of them and the turncoats like Meredith, who is also apparently brainwashed, but also there for a bigger purpose. Is she brainwashed or is she not brainwashed? I don't know if Gerard is supposed to be sympathetic, but he's sacrificed himself for Exton to make an escape, and Exton being like, fuck this guy. But the way that Exton treated him just made Exton look like a monster, even though he was willing to do so much more for Aerie, who was the daughter of the second in command, and you'd think would have a harder time, you know. Gerard helped you escape. He helped you steal a ship. He was your best friend. You described him as your best friend, and you just ditched him. But you would go back in for this freaking girl you knew for 2 weeks? Are you serious, Exton? The men in this book need to stop simping. Like, you can protect your women. This is not protecting your women. This is simpery. She ain't worth it, guys. She ain't worth it. How can you believe that this girl you've known for 2 weeks, you can break her conditioning, but you can't break Gerard's conditioning? Oh, is it the dick? Is it because you can break the conditioning with the dick, but you're not going to give the dick to Gerard? Bro, be a bro. At least be a bro for once. Then you've got zero signs throughout books 1 and 2 that St. Cloud was a turncoat. In fact, the betrayal at the end of book 1 makes no sense if St. Cloud is a turncoat, especially since he was talking to Exton behind the state's back. And then you've got Mira and Aunt Patty. Every female character in this book so far overwhelms the male characters. Mira commands Exton, and he just lets her take control of his ship and resources without pause, without question, without being like, whoa, hold up, what kind of thievery are you working on, miss? Even commanding him around. He is supposed to be this space pirate badass whatever that is taunting the URS, but get a woman in there and he's just like, I'm jello, just do whatever you want, I can't stand up to women. Then you have the weirdness of Aunt Patty, who is supposedly a renegade against the state, but she still requires people in Petra to call her director, whatever her name is, because that was her position in the URS. So people in the URS are using only language that defectors should use, and then people that are defectors are using language and positioning that they got in the URS. Why? Aries' siblings. Aries' dad obviously preferred her over her siblings. How is there nothing about this in their relationship? None of them are trying to impress their dad or win his favor or whatever. None of them hold resentment for her for how he prefers Aries over them. Or maybe they do, and that's why they are all... Maybe they do, and that's why they all don't like her, because they come in and we're told that they're mean. Serena, we're told, is mean because she likes Brock, and so of course the female-on-female jealousy over a boy has to take precedence over just, having some healthy female relationships. But like, could we please develop some relationships in the unit a little? There is so much missed opportunity for complex relationships and competitiveness for rank and favor, especially when Aerie is such a screw-up. But that's never explored. This wasn't about the dictatorship or the families or the dynamics or relationships. This was about Exton and Aerie getting back together, gosh dang it, and finally getting married so that they can smash the Gerard issue. Exton hears Gerard was the one that tortured Aerie, and immediately he wants to kill him. This isn't cute or protective. This is Exton looking like a psycho in the same way he did in the first book when he asked Aerie if she had any exes, and she said no, and he was like, good, and I don't have to hunt them down and murder them. Exton, it's not cute. And I think there is a massive misunderstanding of what that trope is. But Exton needs to be like at least slightly ingratiated, and he's not. So he just is a psycho all the time. World building. Like the last book, the world building just didn't seem to be there, and again, to me, it felt like this was a failure to commit to making the opposition or bad guys believable. If you have to make the bad guys' state so weak that nothing is believable, then I'm sorry, your story and characters are probably weak. There is no sense in how Aerie was treated when she came back. You should have been put through a debriefing or something, should have been checking her pockets, her clothing for anything that she brought back from the defectors, should have been checking to see if there was any tracking devices from the defectors team camp, something. There was also no sense made of what happened in the re-education camp. There was no sense made with the blood tracker. There was no sense made with the electrotherapy. The third in command would have known that shocks would destroy the tracker because he would have been part of the discussion that put that in place. You don't get in that position by being stupid unless your entire society is dumb. Are we a lukewarm society, people? Maybe. Looking at a society run like this is just pathetic, and it makes no sense as to how it actually is in operation. We're also told that St. Cloud loves his children multiple times earlier on, but we're given no reason for this. Clearly, it later comes out that he's a turncoat of the state, but he's not even pretending to follow the state's rules with the way that he thinks. So how did he get in the position that he got? We needed some kind of buy-in for this world, some kind of buy-in for the control that the state has over these people. Stuff like Brock using the word friendship when talking to Aerie in a conversation just after getting on her for sounding like a defector also breaks the buy-in. He either needs to be using her language to manipulate her into telling him things that to expose what she knows, or he isn't sold on the dictatorship. But the way that this is presented doesn't work as it is to make a convincing dictatorship that is the control that it wants you to believe that it has. Yet with that, we're supposed to believe it when Exton says only a few people have ever overcome the re-education program when he's defending why he won't go back for Gerard. No, Exton. You're just a lazy asshole who doesn't care about the people who helped you and is only focused on the poon. And it's just the one poon, not all of the other poons that God threw at you nonstop. It was the one in uniform, the four in uniform, that has animosity towards you to begin with. When you do this, it turns whatever actual theme or threat might be here into something nothing short of window dressing to pretend the romance is forbidden or the lovers are separated or in danger, but it doesn't show that. Motive. And it's specifically going to be Exton's motive, though all of them are kind of hazy. At the start of this book, Exton forgot his entire motive from book 1, which was revenge against the URS for killing his father and destroying his family. He didn't even care anymore and was downtrodden, had to be reminded of Aerie in order to become motivated again enough to go and attack the URS, which was initially motivated by the murder of his father. This doesn't make any sense either, because how passionate can he really be about Aerie if he's forgotten about her and needs to be reminded of her within a week of her being gone? How are you also going to leave up the motivation of the main character, who is so downtrodden that this chick is gone, that he can't work, and his sister doing this person's work reminds him of Aerie, but also he needs Aerie's mom, somebody that the reader doesn't even know because she showed up at the end of the last book. She has to remind the main character of that he actually cares about this chick that he's moping about is gone. Now, don't get me wrong, strong characters can falter and need motivation and get demotivated and depressed and need help getting back into action. But this just made Exton look like he had no sense of himself, no sense of what he wanted, and was a weak character overall. And none of the other characters have any sense of what they want and will do for that stuff either, except for Aerie, who is like, I will lie to Brock to get back to Exton because that's all that I care about is Exton. Boys. Defecting. On numerous occasions, Aerie openly talks about and talks like a defector in front of others in the URS, but no one says or does anything about it. She doesn't even pretend to try to behave when she's at her job. All this proved is that the URS wasn't a serious place, never had been, there were no consequences, no one follows the regime, and no one was ever in any actual danger. There's also when Aerie was being reprimanded, she doesn't use the lingo of the URS. She uses inappropriate language like calling for her father, thinking that that's somehow going to get her out of trouble with the state. Why would you not even pretend to use the language of the state? And especially using your father's position as a threat against these members of the state to say they need to leave you alone. She's willing to lie to Brock to get back to Exton, but she's not willing to lie to state agents to avoid going to re-education camp. I don't understand. Random, but we're also told the sheets in re-education camp are unbelievably comfortable. And I was like, that took me out. I was like, why? You could make the argument that re-education wanted to make you come back to the state with making you feel all this pleasure and like you were taken care of rather than using torture, but we lacked any world building to know if that was one of their methods. And then you immediately went into hardcore electric shock therapy, her being drugged and her being like branded. So they obviously are not making her comfortable. And then you've got Gerard, third in command, also admitting to a defector that he lied to the state so that he could go and track down Exton on his own. How is it that everyone in any position of power in this state is a defector and it still exists? After we find out the third in command is also a 24-year-old, it's more understandable how this place is an absolute joke. Immediate resolutions. This book also suffered from presenting a problem and immediately resolving it, or immediately turncoating it instead of letting the character struggle and figure things out and maybe suffer a little because of that thing. Eventually, everything about this book reads as done out of convenience so that you know everything is always gonna go just right and the good guys aren't really going to suffer unless it's aesthetically suffering. Also, how were there no remote controls to any of the ships in this book? We're legitimately working on plant juice to psychically control ships, but there is no remote control access? Like the juice, the botany stuff, the juice from the plants legitimately to psychically control ships is part of the plot points or developments of this world. Where are the remote controls? Where is the remote access? Exton believing in God. In book 1, Exton said that he was going to do what he wanted to do and God wasn't necessarily correct, or he didn't necessarily believe in God, though he did beg for a woman, so maybe he did believe in God. I think he was just on the outs with God because he was angry. But in this book, he now fully trusts God. We saw no character growth to justify this change, and it was just bizarre to see in the narrative when we didn't see that changing in the character. Which leads me to the last section that I want to talk about on this, which is messaging over storytelling. This book suffers from the same issue as the first book, and that's that the message is put over the storytelling, world building, and characters. In book 1, we're told that the dictatorship trains people that right and wrong are subjective, so people follow their feelings rather than reality. However, even top-of-class Brock says facts over feelings. Later, when Exton is yelling at Aerie, he says where she's from, truth doesn't matter. In book 2, Aerie yells at Brock that truth matters while ironically lying to his face. And then when we see Serena later, She says, love is subjective, so it's wrong, and it's against the state. It sounds like what was wanted here was that the state was teaching objective information, but it was incorrect. It also sounds like the author wanted to use some variation of people allowing their emotions to control them, so they were easier to manipulate, but then it just becomes a pile of behaviors and logic that are trained. It doesn't make sense to put them together, but this is about having characters state specific messages over having characters live in a reality that they do and suffering and working through it. This exchange is an example of that. Quote, "They would bother anyone," Serena snapped. "You're an enemy of the United Revolutionary States, the most fair and equal country that is left in the world." Fair and equal aren't the same things. It doesn't matter, as long as it's the same result. These characters aren't actually talking to each other. Serena said fair and equal, meaning those two things were recognized as different things to her. This line, and there are many of them like this in both first book and second book, they feel like they are there for the soundbite of the two following sentences. What could have been more effective is if Serena had just said fair state to be corrected, that fair wasn't equal, and then she could have answered, doesn't matter, the outcome is the same. But you had her recognize fair and equal as separates instead of just saying, I want it fair, and then having her be corrected on that. There's also this weird obsession with families, babies, and marriage and that this book has, and like, I get it. I like happy endings. I like couples working together, but you have to build it. Everything in this happened so fast, so forced, so underdeveloped that it felt like, and I've seen maybe too many people, specifically since the Avatar movie, trying to claim that families were a right-wing movement, that they were a right-wing quality, that they belonged to the right wing, and that it is a right-wing protest to have families or babies or pregnancy in it. And so like, this didn't feel organic to the story to have that in there. But maybe I accept that maybe I'm tainted from seeing way too many people on the right wing trying to claim that families belong to the right wing, and so now they're writing politically about families because just having a family is right wing. You can tell that I'm annoyed with that. Don't freaking get me started on that conversation. But that's all I've got to say this time around. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Have you read this book? Will you read this book? What are your thoughts on the trajectory? Do you want me to read the last one to see where the finale goes? With all that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and don't die.
The only people who should come are those who want to meet their monsters.
If this is what Agatha wants, I don't know how we can even dispute it.
I change lives, baby.
And I end them. Sweetheart, no bargains hold. Only fools know restraint.
Only losers lose!
I've been under the knife so many times, I'm practically immune to it.
If your scissors are dull, may I recommend sharpening them with leather?
I think I hit you.
Mima says I must have a guardian angel.
To enter the ring but abstain from playing is suicidal. Your virtue makes you nothing but a liability.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die.